Hello, my name is Jason Murray and I'm an architecture consulting engineer with Cisco Systems. In this video, I will show you how to install and configure a CUEAC 8.5 server and client. First, I'll run through the configuration steps on the Unified Communications Manager to allow a successful connection from the CUEAC server. Then I will install and configure the CUEAC server, and lastly I will install the CUEAC client console. The first thing I'm going to do is turn up a couple services on Communications Manager that CUEAC needs in order to communicate with it. So for that, I will go to the serviceability page and log in. Now I'll go to the Tools Service Activation page. The two services that need to be activated, if they aren't already, are the Cisco CTI Manager and the Cisco Axle Web Service. So to activate those, I will select the checkbox next to each one and then click Save. And now I'll click OK on this pop-up message. Now we can scroll down and check to see that both services have been activated. Now that our services are activated, I'll go back to the CM administration page to configure a few more things. The first thing I will configure is a CUEAC user group. For that, I'll go to User Management and then User Group. From here, I'll click on Add New. Alright, now I'll give this group a name. To keep it simple, I'll name it CUEAC Group. And then I'll click Save. Now I'll use the related links to go back and search for the new group I've created. I'll type in CUEAC here and then click Find. Alright, just the CUEAC group has been found. Next I'll click on the I under this Roles column. Now I'll click on Assign Role to Group. I'm going to add 6 roles to this group. The first 5 I will search for by changing the drop down to Contains and then using CTI as the keyword. Now my results here, I'm going to choose 5 groups, and those are Standard CTI Allow Call Park Monitoring, Standard CTI Allow Calling Number Modification, Standard CTI Allow Control of All Devices, Standard CTI Allow Reception of SRTP Key Material, and Standard CTI Enabled. Then I'll click Add Selected. Now if those roles are added, I'm going to add one more by clicking this button again. This time, instead of searching for CTI, I'm going to search for AXL. Now I'll select the only group that shows up, Standard Axle API Access, and then click Add Selected again. Now that all my roles are added, I'll go ahead and click Save. That's all I'm going to configure on this user group. Next is creating the application user. To do that, we'll go up to the menu, choose User Management, then Application User. Now we'll click on the Add New button. I'll keep it simple and keep the user ID as CUEAC, and then I will set a password and then confirm it. Then we'll go ahead and click Save. Once that's finished saving, we'll go ahead and scroll down the page until we get to Permissions Information, and then click Add to User Group. Now we'll check the box next to the CUEAC group we created earlier to give the appropriate permissions to this application user. Then we'll click Add Selected. Next we'll add one more user group to this application user. We're going to change the drop down to Contains, and then we're going to search for Super. Then we'll check the box next to Standard CCM Super Users, and then Add Selected. Now the application user has all the permission it needs, we'll go ahead and click Save. So that's all for the application user configuration. Next I'm going to create a dummy CTI port that CUEAC will use for automatic creation of CTI devices created by the Attendant console web admin tool. For that, we'll go to the Device menu and choose Phone. Now we'll click Add New. Then we'll select CTI port from the drop-down list, and then click Next. We're going to give this CTI port a name of template_CTI. For device pool, I'm going to choose the default pool, and I'm going to leave common phone profile as it is. In this video, I'm using a very basic Communications Manager installation. More than likely, you'll be adding this to an existing installation with many calling search spaces and partitions. On this setup, I have no CSSs or partitions, so I'll choose none. But when you're creating this, you want to make sure that you choose the CSS for your site that has access to all partitions. If not, when your operator tries to forward a call to a number that belongs to a partition they don't have access to, the transfer is going to fail. So I just want to make sure that you're aware of that when you create this template and make sure that the appropriate CSS is assigned. Now scroll down to the Protocol Specific Information section, and under Device Security Profile, choose Cisco CTI Port Standard SCCP Non-Secure Profile. So that completes the configuration for this template. I'll click Save, and then I'll click OK on the Apply Config pop-up. Now go ahead and click Apply Config, and then click OK to acknowledge this pop-up. Alright, now we need to add a directory number to the CTI port. So we'll go up here and click on line 1, add a new DN, and I'll give it a directory number of 1001. And that's all the configuration I will do on this line, so I'll go ahead and click Save. Okay, CUCM is now configured and ready for the CUEAC server to connect. So next I'm going to run through the CUEAC server installation. Before I go into the server installation, I want to go over a few notes. First, IIS 6.0 with the ASP.NET component needs to be installed separately before the CUEAC installation. Next thing to note, the CUEAC installer will check to see if MS SQL and .NET Framework are present. If not, it will install these for you. Keep in mind with SQL, if you do have a large site, it's strongly suggested to use SQL Server Standard or Enterprise editions instead of using the default Express. Lastly, if you're installing CUEAC on a Windows 2008 server, which in this video I am, you have to disable the Windows User Access Control before installing. With the understanding of these notes, let's start the server install. Okay, I've got the server exe downloaded onto my desktop, and I will double click on it to run it. Now throughout the install, there's going to be some waiting involved before it needs your input. So for the sake of time in this video, I'm going to move it along to the parts where input is needed. Since I don't have SQL installed on my server already, and this is for a smaller installation, I'll click OK to start the SQL Express install. The SQL Express installation doesn't need user input, but you will see numerous windows come up while it is installing. Okay, SQL is finished installing and we're ready to install CUEAC. So we'll go ahead and click Next to continue. So here you'll put in your registration information and then click Next. Next you'll input the IP address of the server you're installing CUEAC on. And then click Next. Next we'll put in the IP address of the Communications Manager that CUEAC will connect to, and then we'll put in the application user ID and password that we created earlier. Then we'll go ahead and click Next. Now during this process it's trying to connect to Communications Manager, so a couple security alerts will pop up. We'll go ahead and hit yes to both of them. Next, we'll put in the IP address of the Communications Manager that is running the Cisco CTI Manager service that we turned on earlier. And click Next. We'll click Next to continue. And then Next again. Alright, now it's to the Database Wizard. I'll go ahead and click Next to start the automatic configuration. This will run through and automatically configure the SQL database for you without any input needed. Okay, the database wizard has completed, so we'll go ahead and click Finish to continue on with the CUEAC installation. Okay, the installation is finished, and I'll press Finish to restart the server. In the next section, I'll go over through the actual CUEAC configuration.